It is that stage of the trade period where every single club has exactly or knows exactly what they want. They just haven't got it just yet. So there is a little bit of frustration. Some clubs have frustrated others. Some of them are based on individuals, but we know, we speak about it this time every year. They more often than not get done. That's the end result.
What have you got your eye on, Kingy?
I just want to see how this Jackson deal goes through, what has to happen, and John's got all the answers.
He has. John always has all the answers. A lot going on, Ralphie, but just the one actual deal.
Yeah, so a big key forward has got his way to Fremantle. It's not Luke Jackson just yet. It is Josh Corbett. He's a Fremantle docker for the price of a future fourth rounder. It's a sole deal done today. There are a lot of juicy developments. We have the first threat of taking a player through to the pre-season draft. So we're 4 days in and clubs are officially in Captain Grumpy mode.
All right, so just before you get to those elements and where this leads us with Freo, does this change anything with Rory Lobb, for example, or is this a separate deal, the Corbett deal?
I think it has to help. Now, it's only backup. He's been told that he'll play a role as a lead-up forward. They've got a lot of players like Fife and like Taberner and like Lobb who are deep forward, and so they want him to be that connector type. Haven't guaranteed him a game of football, but they certainly feel that after 23 goals last year in 16 games, and the 2 games he played this year, 2 goals in both of those games, that he's just got real talent. So there are developments on the Luke Jackson front. So Melbourne wants 2 top 10 picks or a top 7 pick and a future first rounder. Fremantle tonight is absolutely resolute. We are giving you pick 13 and a future first rounder, and that is all you're getting. You're not getting a better deal. No one else is going to give any player 2 first rounders with nothing back, and so they believe that's acceptable. So if the Dockers traded Rory Lobb to the Dogs for pick 31, Melbourne have just put their hand out for that one. So right now they're relenting. They won't do a Lobb deal until they get the Luke Jackson deal done. So the take it or leave it offer for Jackson is, as you say, 12 or 13 and that future first rounder. What happens then? So then Melbourne will try to trade for Brodie Grundy. Collingwood wanted a pick between 20 and 25 to get Grundy done. So Melbourne had picks 33, 43, 53. You bundle them up, that's the value of 14. They got 27 for it. So Collingwood's saying, what is happening here? Melbourne is saying, 27's the pick. You take it or leave it. Otherwise, you've got $5 million of salary cap on your list for the next 5 seasons. So Collingwood's angry, Melbourne's resolute. We've got some tension in the air.
So with that Luke Jackson piece, just going back to that original conversation, what more could Melbourne be asking of Freo about what they currently have as a draft hand to suffice that feeling of what they think they deserve?
So they could give him a future second, they could give him a future third.
Yep.
Right now, Fremantle is very keen to keep a future second, and they have 2 of them, their own in North Melbourne's, because they want to use that on Jeremy Sharp. And so they will have to keep a second and a third, giving they're trading away their future first. And so right now they're saying, look, we don't want to trade Rory Lobb. If it got really desperate, they could trade that player, get pick 31 and hand it on to him. But they're saying, it's not happening. We're giving you 2 picks, that's it.
So where do West Coast sit in this? I mean, they're sitting back, seeing this fall apart. Where do they sit?
I think West Coast have their eggs in a trade that we'll talk about later. I know that they're saying that they're open to it. I don't think anyone who's involved in this deal ever thinks that Luke Jackson's getting to West Coast.
Do we need to break the precedence? I get the feeling that a really quality player leaving a football club, and it's been probably enhanced by the GWS players that have left over the years, that it's worth 2 first rounders, it's worth 3. Is that now just the standard of any good player changing clubs? That's what it's worth? Or can we restart this value system?
Yeah, I think that you would say the most you would ever give for a player is 2 first rounders, and you'll say Jeremy Cameron. Jeremy Cameron was 3 first rounders, but 2 second rounders came back. Yeah. And so, look, you know, one of those picks is 12. One of them at Fremantle you'd expect to be 12, 13, 14 next year.
So it's a good point. There is a difference between a first rounder and a first rounder, isn't there?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Top 10 versus...
Not really, Anthony?
Yes, top 10 versus pick 17 or potentially something like that.
So let's say it's 12 and 12. That's probably about right for Luke Jackson.
So what's your guess? What
well, my guess is that in the end Melbourne accepts that, and they say, OK, we've got 2 excellent picks there, and we go and do some other things if we want to. And you know what? If we get 12 and the equivalent of 12, and we give up 27 for Brodie Grundy, we've got 2 very early picks, and we go and give a second rounder for Grundy.
Melbourne have made it well known, if you want this guy, he's going to come at a price. They've said, he's our man, we're going after him. They've done the deal with Jackson. They know exactly where it sits financially. If he's worth what you're saying and the tenure of what you're saying, and given what he's already done, Melbourne didn't want to lose this guy. So if you're putting all these things on the line, get the deal done, Fremantle.
And so that's why we get the brinkmanship of next week. Are they more keen to bring in Jeremy Sharp? Are they more keen to hold Rory Lobb? So that's the equation that Fremantle have to work through, because I could say they won't bend, but you never know. One club has to bend.
They'll bend.
Izak Rankine, are we any closer?
We're very close. So the papers haven't been put in as of 5 o'clock, but that deal it's effectively over the line. So it's pick 5. Adelaide will also hand over a future 3rd rounder, and I think they'll hand over a future 4th rounder, and then Gold Coast will hand a late pick back in this year's draft. They want to get rid of this year's points for next year. So let's face it, it's effectively pick 5 for Izak Rankine, who, he's on an $800,000 deal, star of the future. It's a pretty good deal for Adelaide.
It's a very good deal for Adelaide. You think about a known entity and a young man that's played a handful of really good games, but you've seen some growth, particularly in the last 12 months of Rankine. At least you know what you're getting with that pick 5. I think it's a great move from the Crows.
What are you getting? Tell me what you're getting.
You are getting potentially the best small forward in the competition. There was a guy that went to the same football club, I think it was the end of 2013, Eddie Betts, and he lit that town up for his time there. This guy has everything, capability, skill-wise. We've seen glimpses where he's the most exciting player in the competition and he's just scratching the surface. You hear reports from the Gold Coast about his willingness to compete and his training ethic that has improved over the years, and so it should. And then he's getting a little bit of reward. I know he plays in a position that is often hit or miss, but that's the life of a small forward you could bring into your football club.
At that price, though, like this is the discussion. 5 years, $800,000. You nearly need to be a marquee midfielder or a mid-forward type.
Yeah.
That's big. That's big coin.
It's huge coin, and we've touched on this multiple times. This is just the number now that you have to pay to get good players into your football club. If you don't pay it, you don't get the player you really want. So I accept it. If it's a little bit over, pay a little bit more. Take it off the guys that haven't proven anything yet. I think they're the ones that need to hand a bit of cash back.
From a Gold Coast point of view, and the pick's lower than where he went at in the first place, isn't it? And he's got 4 years into his career. So
Yeah, and
to me,
Adelaide-
that's still not enough, really.
Yeah, Adelaide will scream and shout. They say he's being paid $650. Gold Coast are saying it's $800. I'll tell you what, this is a club that wins games by 150 tackles right now. You got Rochelle and you got Rankine. They're going to fill the Adelaide Oval. They're going to make millions from these pair. I think they'll win some games too.
In my opinion, they need midfielders more than they need small forwards. So one of those two has to become a prime midfielder for the Adelaide Crows to make a charge up the table.
What if this is one of the pieces that they're adding?
It's an expensive piece.
It's a very expensive piece, but I don't think these players have to be the next midfielder. They can go and get midfielders as well at the right time.
If you haven't got a good midfield, you ain't winning a flag.
Completely agree.
So if you spend that sort of money in the forward pockets, good luck stacking your midfield.
One forward pocket.
Well,
You don't have to pay them all.
800,000
You don't have to pay
for a
them
forward.
all that sort of number. But I agree. If you don't have a great midfield, you ain't winning this thing. Absolutely.
Do you think Rankine could become a midfielder? Or you've been a fan of
Yeah, I
work.
am. Of what he does, absolutely. He's a star factor player. We love what he does. I guess I was critical of, I think, the advice to go back to a two-team town, and I cop it for this, into a fishbowl. The Adelaide Crows will clearly provide support, but it's a big ask for a young man to go home on that sort of coin with that sort of pressure. If he can handle that, he'll kick the goals. I've got no problem with him hitting the scoreboard, but they need more than that. They need to become a prime midfielder.
I just think you're potentially underestimating how hard it is to get players back to Adelaide. If it's me, I don't think he made the right decision. I think he was being well looked after at Gold Coast. But if you're Adelaide, you're saying, we've got this kid here, we've been monitoring him for 3 or 4 years.
I'm not having a go at the club. The club have done the right thing, but I just think it's a big couple of years for this young man. Put it that way, as a small forward.
From what you've seen, and without harping on it, does he have the grit to be that person and to embrace being the main man?
I don't know, and time will tell. I mean, we don't know sitting here. I mean, I can ask you the same question.
Yeah,
Do you think he does?
I think he's got a bit of that rock star in him. I think he would embrace being, in front of the spotlight day in, day out.
He's been told by people really close to him, this will be the best thing that's ever happened to you or the worst thing that's ever happened to you. So it's up to him to do the hard work, take him to make sure it's the best.